I grew up very religious. The message that I know I really internalized from them was God is going to bring you the perfect man.
I do believe that there is somebody for everyone. I think that's the same thing in all different types of relationships in your life.
He was a porn addict. I found that. I forgot about that.
I do think it's interesting. It's typically the ones that are like the worst and most falling apart that are trying that much harder to keep up that image. And that's exhausting.
I've learned so much that a lot of the beauty in life is in the mess. So perfection in a way is kind of sad. Like, and there's no such thing.
Happiness is not about perfection. It should just be more about, finding connection and acceptance and growth. Welcome to Holistic Dose. We've been through the plot twists, divorce, parenting, burnout, reinvention, and now we're doing midlife with way more honesty and way less BS. Think of us as your unfiltered friends, here to remind you that you're not too late, too old, or too far behind. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Jeanette.
And today we're going to be talking about the myth of the perfect partner. Now, if we've grown up in, the 80s, the 90s, and lived through the 2000s, we've probably, have this idea of what the perfect partner looks like. And I know we can pull a lot of sources from movies and shows. Jeanette, what do you think about this?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. So I grew up very religious. So my experience with this, I'm sure, is very different than yours. I grew up in a fundamentalist, like an evangelical Christian home.
Wow.
And I was a bookworm and I read Christian romance novels.
So you weren't binging like all the Disney?
I watched Disney cartoons too, but when I started getting really into reading, which I was very young, my mom would take me to the Christian bookstore. And
Okay.
I started with like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and C.S. Lewis and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But then when I got to preteen age, I discovered the Christian romance. The big author
Ooh.
was Janet Oak, and I binged all of these Christian romance novels. And, I know, of course, my parents think, oh, these are like harmless and in fact healthy, whatever.
Right.
But the message that that I know I really internalized from them was God is going to bring you the perfect man.
Oh,
Right?
that's sweet.
I know. And
It's so far from the truth.
it's so what I believed.
Uh-huh.
I thought that, God had a person chosen for
Mm.
me
Mhm.
and it was going to be so perfect.
I mean, I do believe I've a belief that there is somebody for everyone.
Do you
But
believe there's
whether
one person for everyone
I
or do
don't
you?
no, I don't know. I think there could be many, to be honest, in different stages of your life
Yeah.
too. I think that's the same thing in all different types of relationships in your life, family members and friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't believe that there's that one anymore. And I
Yeah,
also don't believe that one person is brought to you and
I don't
it's
believe that
fate
either.
or whatever. I just
Mhm.
don't believe that. But I did when I met my first husband and I was early 20s, I guess.
Mhm.
And I still believed, God is going to bring me the man I'm supposed to marry.
Mm.
And then he was a minister. He was a Baptist minister. So I was
It's
like,
like, "Oh, yeah, this is meant to be."
exactly. Like,
Definitely.
obviously, this is what God intends because he brought me a Baptist minister who wants to get married.
What
And
did your mom think about that? Did she think it was like, "Oh my god, this is the best thing ever?"
yeah, I mean, kind of. I think both
Mhm.
my parents believed that too. Like,
Really?
we've prayed for this and, God's
Wow.
going to bring someone for Jeanette. And it was a shit show. So that marriage.
There was. Tell us a couple of things about it, because those stories.
Ah, wow. Ultimately, it ended up that, okay, he was kind of the end of that marriage, and there were weird things going up to this. We
Mhm.
were only married for about a year. It was not long.
Mhm. How long did you date before you married him?
We probably dated for, God, I don't know, maybe a year, but we got engaged
Mhm.
real fast. I mean, looking back, it was like so many red flags, like moved
Right.
way too fast. But when God intended this, like, why
Sure.
wait, right?
Right. There's plenty other cultures that are doing it, like the Mormons and everything, like
Yeah.
way younger, and they're like matching partners up. So,
Yeah. So the end of that relationship was, remember MySpace?
uh-huh.
And I got onto MySpace and there was this feature where you could put in somebody's email address. Oh, no, you could put in your own email address and would find your contacts, right?
Oh,
But it was like a
yes.
new feature to MySpace. Today is
Uh-huh.
no big deal. So I
Mhm.
put in my email address and my husband came up and I was like, huh, he has a MySpace profile.
Interesting.
And then I went and looked at it and it says he's single and he had all these like really attractive young women were all of
Mm.
his friends and they were all like local in Atlanta. I'm like, this is really suspect.
And MySpace, for those, if anybody's listening who's not familiar with that, that's kinda like pre-Facebook. Mm.
Yeah, that was like yeah, exactly. Facebook
Mhm.
came next. So I threw a fit and told him I'm gonna assume he's sleeping with every single one of those women if he didn't give me his password. So he did give me his password,
Uh-huh.
and I did not find proof that he actually was sleeping with these women, but he
Mhm.
was setting dates and, like, meeting
Wow.
people and yeah, and I'm like, "You know what? You are such a hypocrite." And
Mhm.
then it turned out that he was stealing money from the church that he worked from.
I don't know if I knew
I
that.
don't I didn't even find this out until after
Oh
I
my
left
god.
him, but there were so many other things, like, he would lie about weird things, like, stupid stuff, like, "Oh, yes, I had the oil changed on your car," and he hadn't, or things that's like, "Why would you lie about this?"
Right.
So, a lot of it was so weird, but when I caught him on
Or maybe he
MySpace
was, like, saying,
and
like, "Oh, I'm going to do this task so that he can go out and do other things,"
I don't
like
know. I have no idea. But I was like, we've been haven't been married for a year. We don't have kids. He's
Mhm.
lying to me. He's not who I believed he was, so
Right.
I'm out of here.
This fairy tale is over.
Yes, but a woman that he used to work for, or work with, who worked at the church, contacted me after the divorce, and
Mhm.
she said, "I just want to let you know that I never reached out to you because I believed his side of the story,
Mm.
and he was one of these very likable people,
Right.
right? I mean, he was the minister, and
But then he was the closet, like, porn addict.
yes, he was a porn addict. I found that I forgot about that. That was after the MySpace incident. I was studying for the bar exam when this happened.
Oh my god. You're like, "I
S
do not have time for this shit."
Exactly. So I was like, "I can't deal with this." I went to my parents' house, studied, but then, yeah, later I did like, when I say later, I mean a few weeks, like, after I got through the bar exam, I found, like, all this porn, and it was not normal porn. It was, like,
Mm.
concerning porn. So,
And
yeah,
then I remember you had checked, you saw, like, the frequency of how often he was
yeah,
going.
there was one time where he and I can't even remember what we were doing. This was I mean, God, this was almost 20 years ago at this point, but we were running back to the house because I had to run inside and grab something, and we did. It was, like, maybe 5, 10 minutes, and then we left to go where we were going, and later when I checked his internet history, in that 5 to 10 minutes that we were home, when I was just, like, running in to, like, go pee and, grab something, maybe walk the dog or something, he was looking at porn. I'm like,
Oh
"This
my
is
god.
not normal," and he's
No.
a minister who claims to be one type of person. So, yeah, that was a disaster. So, but still, I still didn't learn. And, I think that did get rid of the God is going to bring me someone. And I just
Mhm.
need to have faith and believe that who he brings to me is the one.
Right.
But, I still didn't make good choices after that either.
So where your main influences were then just from the books originally?
Yeah, I mean, in the church, and I mean,
Mhm.
that was kind of the message that the church told us in youth group as
Yeah.
well was, you're intended for, someone that God's going to bring you and just
Mhm.
trust in God and this will happen. And so I very much was, okay, I'll just see who God brings me. And so I didn't really think about, oh, I need to have certain criteria, or I didn't really do a lot of soul searching of
Yeah.
like, what do I want? Because I thought God was going to
Right.
figure that out for me.
Well, you know what? I'm curious because I didn't grow up with parents that were still married. Did any of your choices, did they get shaped at all by your dad, like showing you like this is how a man should treat you and things to look
Yeah.
for?
I mean, somewhat, but a lot of that again was like the religious aspect. Like my
Mm.
family was very religious. My dad was an elder in the church. So I kind of viewed it as, the man it's good if he's a religious leader, right?
Uh-huh.
But my family, even beyond religion, also shaped me in what I thought was, typical. My entire family, including my parents, got married right after college.
Mm.
And my mom, she got an associate's degree. So I was 20. I think she was 20 when they got married.
Oh, wow.
And they met when she was a senior in high school and they went together to her high school prom.
Oh my gosh.
So, and that's how my aunts and uncles too. Like my dad has a brother and 2 sisters, and married their college sweethearts, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought that's what you do. And I remember when I was in college, I was still dating the guy I started dating in high school. In our freshman year of college, we were still dating. And I even like started bringing up marriage, and I'm freaking him out. But to me, it was
Wow.
like, and I just started bringing up, like, "Oh, after we graduate, we'll get married." And he was like, "What?" And at the time, I was, like, offended, like, "What? You that's
Yeah.
the" to me, it was like, that's the next step. But
Right.
I was just so young and naive, and, now after 2 divorces and 3 marriages and helping maybe 1,000 people through divorces, I have a little bit more wisdom,
A
I would
little bit
think.
more. Yeah. So my experience was completely different than that. I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like because my parents divorced younger, or at least when I was younger, maybe around like 7. And then every relationship, like I've talked about in other episodes before, that my mom had been through, were all like very much filled with like abuse, verbally, physically, mentally, kind of all the things. So my goal for a partner was truly in just finding somebody that would not be those things.
Yeah, and there's so much more to it, so you're just searching for I'm looking for someone who's not toxic.
Yeah, so the other things never occurred to me, but I do
Yeah.
remember being super influenced by I was that teen that had all the, like, teen magazines hung up on my wall in my room, like, I think about, like, the 17, the
I
YM.
did love 17, and I watched 90210. Did you I love
Yes.
90210.
Yes, and you'd read the articles, like, "What should your dream guy be like?"
Oh, yes,
And
and take the quizzes and
yes, it was
same.
all about that. So I lived through that. And then it was like I pulled up a list of movies for us to kind of run through and reminisce, but it was all the movies from like the 90s and like Pretty Woman. So the idea of like being saved by the
This
wealthy, charming
savior
man.
is such a strong theme. I mean, even to
Mhm.
Disney movies and stories
Yes.
that were in the 50s. I mean, Snow White was around when our
Yep.
parents were kids. Cinderella, and
Mhm.
goes from mopping floors to being saved by the rich
Yeah.
prince, or Snow White in the coma is saved by
Right.
the man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh
So the
yeah.
whole soulmate,
Yes.
destined by fate. And then, Jerry Maguire, of course. So the
Yes.
whole, like, "You complete me,"
Yes,
like,
which is so damaging.
oh my god. But it's like, if I am gonna keep going through this list, these are, like, a lot of my favorite movies, if I'm gonna be
Yeah.
completely honest.
I mean, Jerry Maguire's an amazing movie, but
Yeah. Notting Hill, I love that
yeah.
one.
Mhm.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So about how playing games, and it ends
Yeah.
up in romance. The Notebook, I cried
Yes.
like crazy for that.
I still love
Um,
The Notebook, but
I
I
do
agree,
too.
like, it's not reality, and when we're young and impressionable, we don't realize that, right? It's like,
Mm-mm.
you can't watch those and
Right.
understand that it's like watching a superhero movie,
Oh my
or,
god.
it's
Yeah. And then
not
it's
real
all
life.
the music of the time. So it's all the boy bands, like the
Mhm.
NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, romanticizing all the lyrics. And then we go to the TV shows, like you talked about 90210, Sex in the City, Mr.
Mhm.
Big is this
At least
elusive
Sex and the
man.
City, they stayed single for a long time, though.
Yeah,
Like,
you
even
are right.
celebrities, I feel like, were getting married really young. Like, I remember when Jessica Simpson got married.
Mhm.
I was pretty young. I can't even remember, like, what if I was at
She kinda
college or
kicked off
high
the
school,
whole
or
reality show
yes,
era with their
yes, and I
marriage.
think she claimed she was a virgin, and she had that
Mhm.
lavish wedding, and then they had that reality show that I watched,
Yeah.
and along with everyone else. Yeah, so people were just getting married so young too.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think, yeah, it was interesting with that just because they were bringing out a little bit there was so much reality in what they were doing there, in their personalities and kind of everything, and then it doesn't always end up that way.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and then also we have our checklists. So I know
Yeah.
that we have these expectations too. And this is some of the things that I worry about or think about when I know we've talked about this on the sidebar, but like all these kids now who are in high school and doing these promposals, I feel like
Yes.
that is just setting girls
Why
up.
have these, huge expectations as a teenager?
Right.
Yeah,
I can't
I
even
agree.
get that as an adult.
Yeah.
So, like, how are we gonna have these kids set this like, where's the bar at
And
that
is that
point?
what really matters? I think it makes
Right.
more focus on, I don't know, what outward things that other people can see,
Yeah.
and instead of what character and goals and
Right.
shared values.
Like, how big can I outdo this to just get
Yes.
it on Instagram or so my friends can see? And I just
Mhm.
think, I'm not into that at all. I think it just makes it really difficult for any of our kids that we're raising,
It's
and
also interesting, like, as a parent of 3 teenagers now and seeing them
mhm.
start to date and making their own mistakes,
Yeah.
and it's interesting just kinda having to tell myself because as a parent, you can see, like, "Hey, this
Yeah.
person's not gonna be
Mhm.
forever," but they have to figure it out on
They
their
have to figure
own,
it out.
and it's interesting because I think back to, like, who I dated when I was super young
Mhm.
and not even realizing, the guy in the band or the artist, or
Yeah.
you don't realize the importance of having shared goals. You just don't know,
Yes,
and
and depth in character and everything. Yeah.
yeah. As
Right.
a parent, I feel like one of the biggest things I want to instill in my kids is this is not something to rush into. Like finding a partner, if you
Agree.
pick someone in your 20s, that's probably not going to be forever
Mhm.
because you don't even know who you are in your 20s,
Yep, and
right?
that's exactly what I experienced. And
Yeah. And
then the
I,
maturity levels between men and women as
oh
well.
God, yes. Men, I think the brain doesn't fully develop until they're like 30. I mean, it's true.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
um, this has come up in like some in death penalty research that I had to do once,
Oh my god.
but it's research on, like, the impulse decisions, the part of the brain
Uh-huh.
that is in charge of that. Men, it develops very late, and I
Well,
believe it's, like, 30.
yeah, and that's why, and I think for women, it's then maybe like 25, which I think is why they set the rental car
Oh,
age to
interesting.
25. Yes, because your
Yeah,
brain, and I think they just set it at whoever comes first at that. And I guess they just can't exclude, like, only women can get it at 25 and men. But
yeah,
yeah. So I think what we've learned perhaps in midlife is that there's like not like one person's not going to be able to meet all your needs.
yeah, I think that's a huge lesson, and,
Hmm.
something that even now in my 3rd marriage, I'm finally figuring out
Hmm.
that, my husband doesn't need to be my everything, and really he shouldn't be my
Right.
everything.
Right.
So I think people have to think about, okay, what are the qualities that really matter to me in a partner? Like
Hmm.
for me, it's like thinking about I'm going to be an empty nester fairly soon,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking about, okay, what do I want my life to look like when my kid's in college and
Hmm.
beyond that? And I want someone who has some shared interests. Like Jeff and I both like to scuba dive and
Right.
travel. And I kind of envision like, okay, this is what we'll be doing, with our free time. We both like dogs and,
Yeah.
you
Well, it's
know,
also equally important to feel as though you can just be yourself,
yeah.
A, and then B, like comfortable being in a room and there's no conversations and you're okay with that. Some people are just not.
Yeah.
Like they always have to have attention and be at them. But like you have to understand, and I think that takes time before you grow into yourself. Like for myself, like I love to just be able to sit back and be quiet and know that like I need that time to recharge. And if
Yeah.
I was with somebody that kind of always needed to be on, like that would be draining to me, not a good fit.
Mhm. Yeah, and then, I mean, my husband is not the person who's going to wanna go to parties and be real social,
Right.
and that's like when you and I were at that event last week where
Hmm.
we're, like, in cocktail dresses and,
Yeah.
ordering cocktails and talking to people. I mean, I sent him a little video saying, like,
Hmm.
"Jealous?" Like, as a joke because
Right.
I knew he would much rather be at home than there with me, and so I do think it's important to have your group of friends and
Hmm.
just have different relationships that fulfill you as a
Yeah.
whole.
And make sure you have that identity of yourself. And I think that's
Yeah.
where it comes to as well. Like, what's the difference between compatibility and chemistry, right?
Yeah.
And which one is going to sustain. So I think you need to have a bit of the both, but I think people are
Mhm.
more immediately drawn to that chemistry draw, right?
Yeah, and I'm not extremely well versed in the psychology of it, but,
Hmm.
as a divorce attorney, I have done some reading, and it's pretty well established that the chemistry does not stay the
No.
way it is at the beginning of a relationship. It just doesn't. Like people who are together for 20 years do not they your hope is you still do have chemistry,
Mhm.
but it is not that almost obsessive type of
Right.
chemistry that you have early on.
Didn't you end up asking advice for that man that we spoke to that was in the marriage last week for like 40 something years? Didn't you ask him marriage advice? I thought you did.
I don't think so. I asked him a lot of, like, career and leadership
Oh, yeah.
advice. I don't remember bringing up but he did bring up that he had been married for a very long time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you say you see a lot of people splitting up because they felt like they had the chemistry and they're, like, looking for it and they're like, "It's no longer there."
Yeah, I mean, I see some people I would say the vast majority of my clients found out that they just have a complete difference in values. You know, they got
Mhm.
married kind of youngish. When I say youngish, a lot of them, got married at 30. Not extremely young, but just as life progressed, realized we're not wanting the same thing. So I would say that's the vast majority. But every once in a while, I will have a client or a consultation because a lot of times I send those folks to therapy or I
Mhm.
encourage them to go to therapy. Because there are people who sometimes when I hear their reasons for the divorce, I'm thinking they don't have realistic expectations. Like,
Mm.
you know, just I don't know, real life takes over, right? And
Yes.
sometimes we fail to prioritize our relationships
Mhm.
and, don't make sure we do date night and all of
Yep.
that. And I do think that some people start reaching out to me before they've really tried to work on that. And so those folks I do say, "Hey, have you guys tried marriage counseling yet?" Because I always recommend that everyone try marriage counseling before moving forward with divorce, right? Like, I don't want to get people divorced if they're possibly able to work it out. So there are some people who, after talking to me, will think, well, maybe we do need to go talk and talk to a therapist. And occasionally they're able to work things out.
And I feel that sometimes that can also happen because you might see within your friend group that somebody recently became single and they're dating somebody and they're like, "Oh, that looks so fun." And then they
Yeah.
start fantasizing about what they may or may not have.
That initial stage of a relationship is amazing. It is so much fun. So yeah, absolutely. I'm like our friend Amanda. I'm
Mhm.
enjoying just following like
Yeah.
her new romance because it's just exciting, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely normal to I don't know if envy is the right word, but maybe
Mhm.
more like nostalgia or
Right.
like
Right.
oh, wow. That's really nice. How fun to get to experience that again.
Yep.
But, realistically, we have to choose between do we want a long term partner or do we want a
Yep.
series of short term relationships to be able to, every few years have that high again?
Yeah.
And which, you know what? Like, you do you, right? Like, whatever,
Mhm.
people choose is right for them. I also think that especially at our age, that people
Mhm.
need to rethink, does finding my partner really mean getting married?
That's true.
And, I'm seeing gray divorce is becoming pretty common right now. That's just the older people divorce. When I say older, I mean like 55 and older. So not much older than me.
Well, I've heard it's even gone a bit even older than that. Like some people more in
Yeah.
their 60s and up, and then they're like they've been together their whole life and deciding to go get divorced.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, like, some of these having been, like, a 2nd or even 3rd marriage, and so they've been married even though they're, like, 65, they've been married for 10 years,
Mhm.
and it actually kinda complicated things to get married at,
Mm.
55 when you both have assets,
Right.
and then it's, like, arguments over, well, they're sending their money to
This
their adult
kid.
kid. And
Mhm.
it just gets so complicated
Mhm.
when you're not building a financial life together, right?
Right.
Like, when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's like, okay, we want to buy a house. And it's hard
Yep.
to buy a house when you're, 30 and single. You
Well,
kind
I
of
heard even just with the interest rates now, something they were saying,
yeah.
they were like, it might never just go back down to the low rate that
Mhm.
we have. Like we're like below 3, I think we were
Oh, well,
saying.
we'll never see that again in our lifetime. Yeah.
They were saying the reality is that what couples just need to do is they're going to be looking at the 6, 7%, and they just need to consider it as two incomes
Yeah.
and like it was before, but people overextended themselves, but now they just need to have you just need to have less and work
Yeah.
up to it.
Yeah. Which, honestly, I guess that's a whole nother conversation, but I think we've gotten over the top with the sizes of the homes that we
Agree.
have and that we've been
Agree.
buying. And
Well, I think that also causes a lot of distance too within relationships.
yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I think the upkeep of the house, I
Mhm.
know Jeff and I both look forward to having like a little cottage with, you
Yeah.
know, one or two spare bedrooms for the kids to visit when they're adults. But yeah, I think that when you're in your 40s and older, that it is a viable and maybe a really good decision to be like,
Mhm.
look, we don't necessarily have to have marriage. What does this look like for us? We can be
Right.
partners. We can grow old together. Do we even have to live together?
Mhm.
Like, I remember when I was in my 20s, a colleague of mine, an attorney, was probably about 50, and
Mhm.
she'd had a boyfriend for, I don't know, 10 years. And I remember when I was in my 20s thinking that was weird and asking her, "Do you wanna get married?" And she's like, "Hell no, I don't wanna get married.
Right.
I have my house. I go home to my house. I see him when I wanna see him.
Mhm.
He can come over or I can go over there, and then when we need our space, we go to our own space, and it's my stuff." And,
Mhm.
it's just I think there's a lot that's attractive about that. So, it's not that one option's right or wrong. I think
Right.
that people just need to be open-minded and don't just assume that marriage is the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I have one of my best girlfriends, Ella. She's in a relationship for several years with her boyfriend, and they prefer for that reason to keep it separate. Like she's been married before, and he has as well a couple times. So it's just, and they have the kids, and they keep things together. But I think because you don't put that label on it, marriage, it keeps things a little bit lighter. There's just
Yeah.
something about that, not having that contract there too. So that's something as well.
Yeah. Okay, this is probably gonna be controversial,
Go for it.
but I think men also stop trying as hard as soon as the ring goes on, and
Yeah.
I said this
Uh-huh.
to a therapist one time, and she said and I have not looked into this. She
Okay.
said that testosterone drops in men
I've heard that
after
too.
marriage, and that
Mhm.
it's more like, okay, they're pursuing, 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 and then once they find their mate, it's more, okay, now it's about kids and earning money and the day to
And
day.
it's chemically, it's like nothing that in their
Yeah.
mind consciously they wanna control, but it's just how they're made.
So
Yeah.
it's like, why not keep them in that pursuit stage a little bit? I
So
don't
it looks like
know.
you
Like,
guys are gonna get another get a divorce. Just kidding.
no, no, but I just growing older has made me think like, hey, we need to consider our options, and it
Mhm.
doesn't need to be like what society has always told us we need to be doing, especially if
Mhm.
you are financially secure on your own and,
Yeah,
don't need the combined income to live.
exactly. And I think that comes from like, it's like redefining now in your midlife. Like, what is a good partner? And for me, a lot of it is a healthy partner, but in healthy habits and everything. And even just myself being on the GLP-1s, I'm not really hardly drinking, even when we went to
Mhm.
that event last week. So making sure that things are, a good fit for you and your family, but it doesn't have to be like what everybody else has.
Yeah. And another thing to realize, and I think people know this, but I don't know if they really realize the extent of it, like how fake what we see on social media is. And really, one of the reasons that I know it's so fake is because these people that I see posting these amazing photos reach out to me about their divorces,
Right. And you would
right?
like, I would never think.
Exactly. And of
Yeah.
course, anyone who reaches out to me, I never share anything, but
No.
just know that a lot of times the people who are posting about their
Mm-hmm.
Prince Charming of 20, 25 years, they're thinking about leaving him.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting. It makes me wonder, like, why is it so important to people to paint such a rosy picture when it's like the opposite or so different than reality? Like, I don't know. And I get not posting like, oh my, I got in a fight with my husband, or,
Right. Right.
like I get not posting the negative, but why not just post like, hey, here's a picture of, I don't know, us going out to dinner. Why like have all the wordy
I think we're in such a competitive society, and I think it's come, up ever since social media and everything. And then it's like, I know for myself too, there's like a fear of failure and different things. We put pressures on ourselves, and I'm like, nobody really cares.
No, they
They
don't.
really don't. But I think it harms so many other people with them thinking like, wow, look at this person. They really got it. And then
Mhm.
you learn quickly. I do think it's interesting. It's typically the ones that are like the worst and most falling apart that are trying that much harder to keep up that
Yes.
image.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
exhausting,
interesting and exhausting.
really
Yeah.
exhausting. I think that's in some takeaways here, we can look at really reframing what the perfect partner is. And maybe it's more about having an authentic partner. At least that's what
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah. I mean, at least, like, when I look at my first husband, like, he hid all those flaws, and I wouldn't have been okay with stealing money, but there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for having a partner where you know his flaws and
Right.
you're able to accept those. So, if you're in a relationship and you can't name your partner's flaws and you
Mhm.
haven't seen them at their worst, like, you need
They are there. You just don't
yeah.
know them. Mhm.
Exactly. So you don't know your partner yet if you haven't seen them go through a
Mhm.
really bad situation and you can't name their flaws.
I agree. Like, and I prefer, for me, I like to know, and I know people don't like to reveal all their cards up front, but I want to know it all because then I can know what I can or can't handle. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of things. Like some people, there's different triggers for others and scenarios, but I think if we all kind of lean into being more authentic, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think also another reminder is that like happiness is not about perfection. It
Mhm.
should just be more about, finding connection and acceptance and growth. I think those are really good ones.
And I've learned so much that a lot of the beauty in life is in the mess, right?
There is.
So
Mhm.
I think perfection in a way is kind of sad. Like, and there's no such thing. I mean, it's fake anyway. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think that just sometimes embracing mess and chaos and
totally.
kind of enjoying the ride, right? And
Completely. Yeah, and I think if we can encourage our listeners to think about what are some things that really matter most to them in stage of life because what we've talked about this before, what mattered to you in your 20s and your 30s is completely different now in your 40s and up. So,
Mhm.
make that list, get really clear with yourself before you try to start matching all these Disney movies that are just not reality. That's like at
Yeah,
all.
absolutely not.
And then also thinking too, like, are you looking to have somebody try to fill these gaps that you need to fill for your own self? Feeling confident, like knowing for myself that, like, yeah, years ago, I didn't feel good living alone. I felt like, what's wrong with me? I need to have somebody here, or I needed to go out all the time. And now I'm like, I love it. There's
Mhm.
nothing more that I love. So if today's conversation reminded you that the perfect partner is really just a myth, we'd love for you to keep unpacking more of these real life truths with us. And make sure you keep listening and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on social media at A Holistic Dose on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more fun. And visit our website at aholisticdose.com.
Thank you, everyone. See you
Thank
next
you.
time.